Hi everyone and welcome back to the fantasyfootballfix.com YouTube channel with me, Tom Campbell. Really excited to say that for this Meet the Elite team reveal, we've got a new manager to introduce to you all. So we're going to be looking at double game week 27. There are timestamps on the video if you want to hop around. But without further ado, let's get right into it. Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel, and welcome for the very first time to Matt Corbidge. Matt's a new manager, or a new star of the show I should say, in terms of our Meet the Elite team reveal. So it's the first time we've managed to get Matt on the show. I've been trying to do it for months and months, but we've managed to do it today. Matt, welcome to the show, man. How's it going?
Hey Tom, great to be here. Long overdue, and thanks for everyone for your patience whilst you waited for me to join. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and it's absolutely awesome to have you on, Matt. I mean, you and I were talking off camera, and I just look at that record, mate. It's absolutely amazing. 5 top 5k finishes, I should say, and 6 top 10k finishes with the best ever finish in the top 1200. And more to the point, Matt, looking at this, our Elite 11, which people can follow, and I'm sure they do over on fantasyfootballfix.com. You are sitting pretty at the top of that mini league. How does it feel, mate? And how long have you managed to be there so far?
I mean, it's a pretty good achievement, but I'm getting used to it. You know, I'm the reigning champion from last year. And I've been near top most of the season. So I think if we left it a week or two, it's getting quite tight up the top. So it could have been a different story in a couple of weeks. But
which is probably why you're here right now, isn't it? Yeah, get it strike while you're still
picking the right opportunity for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing league, as you can imagine, all the great managers we've had on the series so far, and it's super competitive, and everyone's thought processes are amazing. But you're sitting around overall rank of 30,000 so far. Matt, how's the season gone for you? How are you? How's it panning out for you so far?
Yeah, listen, Tom, I think obviously I've got to be chuffed at being ranked 30k at this time of the year. That kind of sets me up for a nice season. So it should set me up for a top 10, top 5k finish if everything goes to plan.
Sure.
I tell you what, though, it's been a bit frustrating since the restart. So I think I finished in game week 16 at around about 15k, and like I was on a upward trajectory, and it was looking like all fine and dandy. But yeah, since the World Cup and post restart, I've really struggled to make ground. Yeah. I've been jumping between 40k is probably my worst kind of like overall ranking at those game weeks, and my best has been about 20k. So 30k is like bang in the middle. So I've been jumping between those kind of ranks for a couple of weeks now. The good news is I haven't plummeted. Right, I could have been plummeting ranks. So I'm maintaining ranks whilst it's been feeling like I've been having quite a few tough game weeks. So I've got to be happy with that.
Definitely. And I just wonder on your thoughts on that. So sort of stagnating a little bit, and we can see the graph there around, like you say, between 40 and 20k over the last 5 game weeks or so. And you're saying that's been indicative since coming back from the World Cup. Do you think that's because teams are converging and we're arriving at really, really similar teams, and actually it's really difficult to make gains, but also conversely, if you don't deviate from that template, then you're not going to fall too far? Is that what you see the root cause?
A little bit of that. I think there's limited points of differentiation. So you're spot on, right? There's quite a solid template, and people know who the solid picks are. And I think if you're taking FPL seriously since the restart, you've been very driven by double game weeks and blank game weeks. Yeah. So you kind of like the pool of players that you're looking at is pretty limited. So I think that's certainly at play. I think really like the standard of play is really, really high as well. So, some game weeks you'll think there's a random player who's kind of hauled, right? But he's still really highly owned by other managers. So it's kind of like the standard of play seems to be really, really solid. But I think it's always the back end of the season where you can kind of really go up or down the ranks, right? You have the doubles that are big and spread out. You can kind of pick a real view of where teams' form is, what the fixtures are looking like. So I'm quite happy to it's frustrating week on week, but I'm quite happy to be in this like solid position, because it's always the back end of the season where you can almost go to your sprint finish. So
it's a great point. A lot of the other guys I've had on the show have said the same, sort of making hay over the next, I guess, few game weeks with these doubles and the blanks, and having to navigate them successfully is going to be critical to getting those higher best overall ranks, I guess. And hopefully on fantasyfootballfix.com we provide tools by which to help managers do that. And of course the blog section that you guys complete with your teams as well is a great insight into your minds as well. I mean, we're going to talk about the game week 26, which is still in play. I should say we're recording on Monday evening, guys, and we're going to take a look at Matt's team in a moment there. But Matt, you went into it on the back of a wild card. Was that a no-brainer for you? Was it a straightforward decision? Before we talk about the actual team itself, but the actual thought process that led you to use that wild card, was this something that was straightforward for you?
I think like a lot of people, I'm probably going to console myself and said, yeah, the logic was sound. Obviously, the results, we'll talk about it shortly, have led to different conclusions. But yeah, for me, I was always targeting when I looked at the fixtures this week or next week for a wild card. It was in my plans for quite a while, and I think the Liverpool triple up, having that, and them not having them having the blank in 28 kind of forced to have a wild card. I had a few other problems as well, right? I had Nketiah, who's been dropped, Mahrez, Foden's taken his position. So I'd like to think like I'm pretty, I kind of plan in advance, so my team never has a huge amount of problems. So for me, it was like, if I'm not going to do it now, right, when there's these doubles and blanks to navigate and I jump on Brighton players, Brentford players, when would I do it?
Yeah.
So I think it was, if not now, when? So yeah, it was always there, and it was a good opportunity to switch some problem players out and jump on teams that were doubling and covering that kind of blank week as well coming up. So yeah, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and I'm sure loads of the people watching, Matt, as well, and get your comments in below, guys, if it's the case, that will be in the same situation having used that wild card. So yeah, mid-double game week. So let's take a little look at how Matt's team shaped up off the back of that wild card and how it's done so far. So you mentioned the Brighton boys then, Matt, and straight away my eyes go to that midfielder of Mr. McAllister sitting nicely in the midfield with 14 points, and you got Solly March there sitting on the bench as first sub. Tell me honestly, was there any deliberation between who you'd start between the two of them, or was McAllister always the standout choice for you?
Listen, it was a bit of a lottery, right? It's a bit of luck there, but I was always going McAllister, and the reason why I did it was I thought he was going to be in the number 10 with Lallana injured. I thought the 10 spot was going to be his own. And I think the last couple of game weeks, his stats have gone a lot better since he's been, obviously he was playing the pivot previously when Lallana was in the 10. The last couple of games, he's been getting really good stats. He's been pretty unlucky not to return. Yeah. And I knew he was on penalties, right? I couldn't predict he was going to get a penalty. So that's pure luck. But yeah, the logic was there. So I thought short term, he's going to be the best player. And, obviously, yeah, it's made hell of a difference. I think
it has, yeah.
Obviously, people who picked March, I can see the logic there. I think long term, FPL wise, he's the best. He's the best player. I mean, I don't think he's the best player in real person. That's probably Matoma, and then McAllister. Then March is pretty inferior, but he's got great stats and he's scored like all season pretty well. So I'm glad that I've got him on my bench, and probably next week I'll play him. But yeah, Big Mac, I always was eyeing him up for those pens and those number 10 attacking positions. So some may say it's luck. I'm viewing that as like good skill, right?
I'm not saying it's luck. No way. I mean, the amount of lucky decisions you elite managers make, it can't be luck, man. It just can't. You just do keep always being successful. And apologies, guys. I think I did say it was mid of a double game week for 26. Of course, it's not a single game week with a remaining fixture of Brentford to play. Let's bring that nice segue on in terms of those Brentford players, Matt. You've got Raya sitting on your bench there. You've got Ivan Toney up front, and you've got Henry at the back there. That triple up there, was there any deliberation over any of them? I mean, Raya seemed a bit of a darling in terms of people on wildcard, Ivan Toney, as we know. But any thoughts elsewhere, or was Henry the standout there in terms of the remaining Brentford contingent to pick from?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, like for me, free Brentford was like non-negotiable, right? Looking at their fixtures, but also negotiating the blanks and having the double. I needed to have them. They were a great price point, and I think if you look at positions where there's not many players kind of available that are like going to score FPL points, I think strikers is a bit limited at the moment. Yeah, sure. So Tony, obviously with his potential ban coming in like into April, for navigating those blanks, those doubles, and the lack of other striker options, he was a no-brainer, right? And we know he's historically scored really, really well.
Yeah.
He gets XG, so he was always going to be in there. Same for Raya, right? I think he might be the top or one of the top performing goalkeepers over the season.
Yeah.
He gets a lot of save points, a lot of bonus, right? He was always going to be there, great price point. When it came to Henry, I mean, it's a bit of a lottery again. I mean, I have no idea how Henry is a player, what he looks like, but I know he's an FPL option, right? He's kind of nailed on, and then you could look at Pinnock and me as alternatives.
Yeah,
I went for Henry because I prefer his position.
Yeah,
he could potentially play ring back in some games, and I think at the moment budget isn't an issue because I'm loaded up with quite cheap mid-price players throughout.
Yeah.
Later in the season. And I was looking at some of my transfers that I'd be kind of planning for in the future weeks. I'm probably going to have to keep that Brentford defender for a while. And he cost at the time, I think, 0.5 or 0.6.
Not insignificant, right? Yeah.
No, exactly. And he's going to realistically be on my bench after game week 30. And hey, who knows? I might need that budget later down the line. So it was a bit of a toss-up, and it was purely the budget that kind of like led me to Henry, really. Yeah. Nothing more deep than that.
I like it. I mean, on the previous slide, we saw the amount of money you still have in the bank. So we've talked to other elite managers, Matt, on the series about how this season, the pricing at the beginning sort of has led to a different flavour of the game this season in terms of not having to be quite so aware of the 0.1 or 0.2. But I guess when you're talking that amount of difference for a Brentford defender, it does need to be thought about. And just a reminder of the fixtures, guys. You've got Brentford, obviously the Fulham game, then the double. Couple of away matches there in double game week 27 of Everton and Southampton before having that fixture in blank game week 28 right in Leicester at home, and then another double with Brighton and Man United away, and then a home game against Newcastle. So you can see why the treble up was so sought after, I guess. Looking elsewhere in the team, that Arsenal treble up as well. Mentioned to a couple of the other guys on the shows previously, wondering about how we set that up, whether or not it was stick with and Nketiah sort of fell out of favour a bit. Gabriel at the back there, Matt, any thoughts to go for Zinchenko instead, or was this a straightforward 50-50 call and you could sympathise either way?
Yeah, good question. I think I wouldn't say it's a 50-50. They were close, for sure. Close in price and close in kind of like performance. Ultimately, this week it hasn't really mattered.
No.
They both got 1 point. But Gabriel, I kind of need these Arsenal players for me need to play in the blank, so in game week 28. So Gabriel, like whether it's true or not, I think he's just more robust. I think he's less injury prone compared to Zinchenko historically, and I don't think he has any rotation risk. I don't think Zinchenko does really, but Tierney could play. Who knows if Zinchenko has a niggle? Gabriel's definitely going to play, and I need them to play that blank game week. Plus, I looked at a little bit. I saw something around the teams that they were playing. So Bournemouth has already happened, and it didn't really kind of turn out as what I expected. But some of the upcoming fixtures, the teams they're playing, they have been prone to concede from set players. And Gabriel, like, he always looks threatening from a corner. So I wouldn't be surprised if he nicked a header over the next couple of days. So that was the thought process there. A little bit more nailed and a good attacking threat from corners. Zinchenko, great in the build-up, but sometimes it's more pretty passes, rather than a kind of a complete assist or goal threat.
Yeah, I love it. I love the nuanced thinking. That's cool. Like, to the sort of teams you're talking to, Fulham away in double game week 27, Palace in a home match in 28. Nice to have that in the blank game, and then a home match against Leeds in double game week 29. Whether or not these folks are all going to be part of your team, I guess we can talk about. Also, you mentioned the Brighton ones. Just as a little teaser, we do have some content later on, another slide further on down in the video as well, guys, in relation to looking at some of those Brighton stats, and we'll talk around those in a little bit. But that's interesting, the level of thought that goes into selecting when you do have things that are super close. Looking at the forwards then, Matt, you've got loads of money spent there, and I suspect that front three is going to be echoed right across the game. Are you happy with it? How are your feelings for Sir Harold?
I mean, with Kane, I think just because he had that game in 28 and he had a favourable one out of that, you kind of had, if you were wildcarding, you had to have him. Yeah. Right? His stats are still pretty decent. I mean, Spurs' form is kind of questionable, but there's decent fixtures fixtures, he's always finding a way, right? So he was always in, as was Tony. I mentioned about Brentford and why they were important. Haaland was actually a point of debate for me, right? Because, and I think actually, given he's only come away with 4 points this week, I think I lost that one really. So the other real alternatives were probably really Watkins was the other I was kind of considering. He's got a double in 29, I think, and also a fixture in 28. So Haaland, he got his 4 points, which is great. Let's see what he does next week. But yeah, he'll probably be moving out to someone like Watkins in the blank game week. So a bit underwhelmed by him, but we know he can haul against anyone. So who knows what he'll do next week. So yeah, happy that I've got him, I guess. But yeah, he did underperform, so he hasn't played his part yet.
No, fair point. And yeah, the Villa fixtures you mentioned, they've got the away match in double game week 27, West Ham. I'm a West Ham fan, so you won't get any confidence from me there at all. And then a nice home fixture in 28 against Bournemouth, as you mentioned, then a double in 29 and Chelsea and Leicester respectively in away matches. So Ollie Watkins, I'm sure, will be on people's mind. Who would have thought that only FPL and double game week seasons can see, Erling Haaland out for Ollie Watkins being the sensible recommended play, perhaps, isn't it? It's cool. Okay, look, I mean, we can also talk briefly about the likes of Trippier and Botman, but I think instead of getting onto that for this game week, look, we understand how your points are playing out, for game week 26. Let's take a look at how you're considering setting up for next week in game week 27. Okay, cool. Now, this has got to look lovely to you, Matt, seeing this on screen with all these double game week players all sitting there nicely, none of them injured, all of them looking like they're set fair to get you a load of points. I mean, this is why you've used the wild card when you have, right? I mean, in terms of that setup there, you see any potential way that any of the guys on the bench could bulldozer their way in?
Listen, I think it looks great. Actually, I'm just nodding and smiling because
it does look good. I'm really envious.
I've seen it on screen, and those fixtures look great. Those players look great as well. You obviously plan for it, but seeing it on screen is pretty good there.
Yeah, it is.
I'm feeling pretty smug, but we'll see what happens in terms of how it plays out. But in terms of the bench, I guess it's kind of really weird. Okay, what are the dilemmas? So. That's quite a strong bench. You could bench boost that.
You could. I did wonder, was that a thought? Is that in your head? I mean, it's maybe not necessarily optimal with doubles, but looking at that, I mean, goodness me, you'd surely be happy with any of those guys starting if you had to.
Yeah, listen. I think if I had a keeper who was doubling, right? If I had, Sanchez was the play, right? But obviously he's been suddenly dropped, which is real bad steal. But if I had a steal in there, maybe I'd look to potentially bench boost, because I think a double game week for a playing keeper is always massive. And historically it's worked really well. But I wouldn't be doing that with the single kind of game weeks, but they all look pretty good. The dilemma actually is probably, do I play Odegaard over Haaland? Is crazy as that kind of sounds. That's probably a bit of a dilemma. I think he's probably Kane, Forest at home.
You got to start him.
Got to start him. You got to play Saka really with the stats and form that he's got, and Fulham away. Fulham looking better defensively, but I'm backing Arsenal to kind of continue where they have left off the last couple of weeks. I don't think.
And Trippier, how do you feel? I mean, Newcastle obviously gone off the boil a little bit in terms of results. Obviously losing the Carabao Cup final as well. I mean, Trippier's been a hero for us all, hasn't he, over the course of the season, and we know still hoovers up bonus points irrespective seemingly of how the team or he even does. But you still happy with him? I mean, you've got to be right, bearing in mind he's on the wild card choice. But any reservations about the Newcastle team right now, Matt?
Honestly, I think it's none at all. Really, it's kind of interesting because I think a few people are raising to me, Newcastle, it's another loss, another a game where they conceded goals. I think it's really been dictated by fixtures, right? Look at it. Their good form prior and after the World Cup, I think, was driven by fixtures. Their up and down form recently has been driven by fixtures as well, right? The games they've lost recently have been City, United, Liverpool. Like, these are good teams.
Yeah,
They're
they
good
are.
attacking teams. So Wolves, unfortunately, sorry Wolves, but you're not a great attacking team,
No,
and
they're not.
they're at home. Bruno's back in midfield, which makes a difference. So I'm expecting a big performance from Trippier. So I wouldn't be surprised for a 12-pointer, an assist, clean sheets, and bonus. Wouldn't be surprising at all. So
a reminder of why we have him.
whatsoever.
Yeah, definitely. I see where you're coming from for sure. Lots of doublers there. Captaincy's on Ivan Toney. Obviously, we're recording before him having played his game in game week 26. Let's assume he's come through that unscathed and he's done well. I mean, captaincy choice around the doublers there, Matt. What went into selecting Toney ahead of the likes of McAllister, who's hauled so well for you in game week 26?
Listen, provisional captain there just because nailedness, penalties. I think he's got a lot of attacking threat. Yeah. This is probably going to be the biggest decision of like who are the three, Toney, McAllister, or March. I kind of pick.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably going to be something I have to research a little bit more. I think Toney's got slightly better fixtures. If I look at Southampton away and Everton away, I think Palace and Leeds are slightly more difficult. I'll have to make a decision who's better out of Brighton and Brentford. This is a real 50-50.
It's tough, right? Yeah, it is a difficult call.
Ways between them. So this will probably one I'll be thinking about a little bit harder. I think I'll see how Toney does tonight against Fulham. Mm-hmm. I think if he scores and looks solid, then I'll probably keep it on him. If he's looking off the boil, he may get banned. Who knows? I think he's only a yellow card or 2 yellow cards away from a ban. So we'll see. Yeah. We'll see suspension. So we'll see what happens there. But like, if he performs well tonight, I think I'll probably keep it on him. If he's looking iffy, if Brentford are looking a bit iffy, I'd probably seriously consider probably McAllister. Actually, I've got it on March at the moment because he's got kind of great stats throughout the season.
Yeah, we'll come on to it in a minute. We'll have a look at the Brighton comparison. I mean, this is really difficult recording when we are, that the folks will be watching this after having seen that play out. So if something's gone wrong with Toney, then I guess that would be my follow-up question. Would you be looking to one of the Brighton midfielders? And we can talk about that around the next slide as well, Matt, which we've got some really cool stats there as well. United, you got Rashford there in the team. What on earth happened to them on the weekend? I've no idea personally, but do you think it's just a blip, and this niggling concern over Rashford's knock that he took recently is nothing to worry about, and we just keep flogging that horse with him?
I'm going to keep him. I'm thinking that they're still looking good.
Yeah.
I'm going to view it as we'll see what happens next week and beyond, because I think for me, I'm targeting triple United from game week 29, where there's a double onwards. I think the result on the weekend against Liverpool, I think it was the odds for a 7-0. Liverpool was like 2,000 to 1. Yeah. So it was really a freak result. And I think even I'm big on my stats, right? So I think even if you look to expected goal, some people roll their eyes at it. I think it's a really useful tool. Sure. I think an accurate tool score would have been like 3-0. So I think I'm viewing it as a freak result, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, Rashford, I've got confidence that he'll come right back against Southampton, probably be on the score sheet as well.
Yeah, cool. I like it. So just a sneak preview, Matt. You mentioned treble United players being part of the plans longer term. That double in 29 is Newcastle away and Brentford at home. So understand that. Where would you be looking outside of Rashford? Let's assume fitness continues, form continues in the way it has. Who's the sort of standout options in the United team that you see yourself going towards?
Yeah, so I think Rashford is the best. Probably be a captain that week as well. I'll probably look for a single defender, and probably Shaw is the pick of them. Yeah. I can probably move. Could move Henry. I could move Gabriel to like Shaw if I was looking at my forward plans. So they would be the people I'd sacrifice there. Probably Gabriel, because he doesn't have a double. I know he's a better player for a better team. And then in midfield, I'd probably look to move Odegaard to Fernandes. So he's been in my nemesis this season, really. I think he was the one mistake post restart. I didn't have him in at kind of any stage, and I think he scored well in all the doubles and pretty consistently throughout it. So I think me going early on KDB and then team structure meant that I just couldn't get him in without like massive like team surgery. But that's probably been the biggest mistake of my season so far. I think if I had him, I'd be in the top 10k. But yeah, I'm gonna get him in for sure. And like, if anything, that's damage limitation. He can't hurt me anymore if he's in like.
I get it, and it does factor in, doesn't it? I mean, it was a bit of a leading question because you mentioned previously about the benefits, I guess, of in a double game week having a goalkeeper. I wondered if David De Gea's name would find its way into the thought process. I guess it's a consideration, right? Bearing in mind that he's had a good season too.
It's that cliche, like team dependent. If you look at my keepers, and I'll probably be bench boosting maybe in 29. I've got two solid keepers with okay games as well. Sure. So like Ray doesn't have the best fixtures in 29, but he racks up save points. Yeah. So I'm expecting he could get a random clean sheet and then rack up his saves and bonus. Kepa's got two pretty solid fixtures. So I think like De Gea could do well, but like for my team, like that just wouldn't make sense over moving those kind of weaker players or single game weakers. So
makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, man. Let's take a look. We've got to put together some stats looking at the Brighton midfielders. Matt, we're going to talk through now as well. And I also wanted to get your thoughts and maybe just a hint to the viewers as to whether or not your remaining chips have already been earmarked for a particular game week. But let's take a little look at the Brighton midfielder comparison. Sorry, I grabbed the wrong slide there, but this is what we've got on screen. So obviously your decision's already been made in relation to the wild card that you've used, but we've got Solly March, who I am sure this is a picture of Solly March. We were talking off camera, like, could we actually pick him out of our lineup? We've got him, we've got McAllister, and we've got Matoma there, respectively. And we just pulled out some statistics from the resumption, game week 17 through game week 26, in terms of things like expected goals, assists, that you've mentioned already, Matt, expected FPL points, which is a great stat that we have over on fantasyfootballfix.com. But in terms of these three then, Matt, you're set up with Solly March and McAllister there. Talk to me about Matoma. Was he ever in the mix, or did you just think this guy's now playing too wide and we can forget about him?
I think you're spot on. Yeah, I think he's probably the best player, right? But is he the best FPL asset? Probably not, right? And like looking at these stats here, I think it's reassuring. I think I've made the right decision here with March and McAllister. So yeah, I think what drove me to select March and McAllister, it's their threat essentially. Yeah. Like, what's their expected goals, what's their expected assists, and both of them are superior to Matoma. So he's a fantastic player, but I think he's his positioning a little bit too wide, and those stats are pretty stark actually in terms of his assist and goals. He's a lot less.
They stand out, don't they? They really do. Once you actually look at the data that fantasyfootballfix.com can provide, it does start to inform your decision, doesn't it? And you must be feeling pretty smug right now.
Exactly. I got McAllister in because of his goals and his penalties. He got them. March, I made the decision to kind of bench him because he didn't have those things. But next week he could haul as well. I think he was pretty close to a couple of assists on the weekend. I'm feeling confident about him. Matoma, he's a bit of a magician, right? He could conjure anything, right? He could create a fantastic goal out of nothing, but you can't predict that, right? So what we do know is the stats, what they've been doing in preceding games, right? And like he looks, quite far off the other two. So this table is essentially what I was kind of the reference points I was looking at when I was building that wildcard team. Really, it's a bit of a black and white, boring and geeky way of doing it, but I think it works. It works.
Yeah, and I mean, I imagine for the viewers as well, some will be thinking about actually using wildcard right now. Those who didn't use it in game week 26, I'm sure will be tempted to use it imminently, maybe even in prep for double game week 27. I guess your steer would be to follow your lead, and actually March and McAllister are the way to go. And in terms of a treble up, you wouldn't necessarily be looking to have all three midfielders, but actually just to choose two and potentially supplement them with another defender like you did with Estupinian, or potentially even down the goalkeeper route, now that we think that Mr. Steele might be a steal.
I like it. It's a really good thing. I hadn't considered the triple up. They're all great options, right? So I kind of like. I think that's very. I don't mind being like too centered on one team, but I think three Brighton midfielders.
It's a lot, right?
Is a lot, and you've got to think of who you're going to play in the blank game week and Brighton blank. Yeah. So that means you've got two midfielders, which isn't an ideal setup. I think March and McAllister are the best two midfielders, without doubt. And these stats really
they back it up.
Kind of sell that point.
They back it up. Yeah. They confirm to me that the elite managers definitely know what they're doing. Matt, we've got Salah on the thumbnail for this video. Like Liverpool off the back of a resounding win against their rivals. You say the XG sort of makes us think that is a bit of an anomaly there. They deserve to win clearly, but an away match against Bournemouth in double game week 27, blank in 28, and then a double in 29 against away matches at Man City and Chelsea. You got any plans to bring any Liverpool players in? No,
is the simple answer. I think you got me worried then, saying, "Hey, it's Bournemouth away next week," so I'll be I'll be shitting myself really. To be blunt, it's going to be scary based on how they performed like last week. But who knows? Bournemouth were good against Arsenal. We'll see how they are against Liverpool. There could be a surprise there. But obviously, and it's a blank, and then it's a tough double. And I think with these doubles, you can't have them all, right? No. You can't pick them all. And Salah and the other Liverpool assets are extremely expensive, so they're very difficult to get to. And would you prefer Salah with City away and Chelsea away versus, and I think Chelsea have been okay defensively, right? I think they've been lucky for a while. The stats are looking good, but they've been defensively all right. Mm-hmm. Would you prefer that over kind of like Bruno's fixtures where it's Brentford and Newcastle? I don't know. I think I prefer Bruno out the two, right? Yeah. So just got to weigh it up. Like ideally to have him, I'd have him instead of, I don't know, March maybe for that double, but
I don't know, man. It's close. Solly March is. I mean, neither of us said we recognise his face, but he's becoming more of an option, isn't he? No, it's an interesting one. I mean, Liverpool, they're still in the contention for top four, right? So it's still somehow they're still in this debate despite having such a rough season. So I just wondered whether or not you were if your spidey senses were perking up.
Short term, no, like Tom, but like I think medium term definitely, and that's gonna be something we're gonna have to plan for. Is how do we bring them in for the run-in? Yeah. I think they may be due at least one other double in 34, 37. They'll have a decent run-in as well. Yeah, so that's like one of the logic around Henry over me, right? We want these expensive players down the line, right? I don't want to be like 0.1 away from Salah because I got me instead of Henry. So this is the little thing. So it's definitely a medium term kind of thing that they'll be back on the radar for sure. But short term, you just can't afford them with those fixtures, a blank and a poor double.
Nope, gotcha. Makes total sense, mate. Definitely, I understand. You mentioned previously some thoughts around your remaining chips. So just remind us, Matt, which chips do you still have in play?
Yeah, so I've obviously played Wildcard this week. Mm-hmm. I've got bench boost left and free hit.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure when I'm going to use them. So yeah, bench boost will be 29. Yeah. So after the blank and the international break,
the big double. Yeah,
that's the big one. Mm-hmm. That's the big one. And I think I won't have a full suite. I won't have a full house of doublers. Mm-hmm. I think I have one or two single game weekers, but they'll be good players, right? They'll be Kane or Saka, and last season I misread the doubles and I had a bench full of Arsenal players with a single game week, but I still did pretty well out of that. So I think single game weekers with a decent fixture they can do well. But I'll have like a solid suite of double game weekers, one or two great assets who are single game weekers. So yeah, that's when I'm going to use it. And I think I'll be set up for a pretty decent week. So yeah, 28. I'll be using it. 29. Sorry, I'll be using it
for the bench boost and the free hit.
And the free hit, probably game week 32. So the way I'm planning my team, I'll have. So that's a blank, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's the remaining blank. So I think by that time I'll have triple Brighton, well, at least 2 Brighton players, and it's good to hold on to Brighton players because they've got the most fixtures to the rest of the season. So that it's good getting them in and good getting the right ones. I've mentioned it before, I'll probably have triple United because of their generous double game week in 29. Both of those teams, I think, blank in 32, or the probability says they'll blank.
It's not set yet at time of recording, but we expect them to. So let's take it that they do. That makes sense. I see. Mm-hmm.
Good little caveat there. But I think my team will be, I'll probably have a lot of. I'll be pretty short if the FA Cup games go as planned.
Right. I see.
And there'll be some decent teams. I'll be quite low on numbers who will have like okay fixtures. So I think 32 is the game week where I look vulnerable and pretty short, and then I navigate that with a free hit. I should, in theory, be well set up for the remaining double game weeks in the running.
Yeah.
Loaded up on.
I've got to be honest. I'm fascinated by that. You and I I don't like talking to the guests before because I like having the answers given, during the combo, and I wouldn't have predicted that the free hit would be used in that type of comparatively smaller blank game week. So it's fascinating to hear your reasons as to why. Because speaking to the other guys, they've sort of said the free hit's power should be used in a double game week. But I guess if you've used the wildcard in the way that you have to set yourself up for how these fixtures are expecting them to fall, the requirement's not there this season to use it in that way, because you can navigate it with transfers without the need to take massive hits to get yourself loads of doublers in those weeks, right?
No, precisely. Like you can always use transfers. People forget about that. You can always use transfers and hits to get your doublers and kind of whatnot, and it can pay off. And probably a bit of a cheeky remark, but like probably a lot of them were saying they wouldn't wildcard in 26 and 27, but majority of people did. So I reckon the way it's, and like we get new info every week, right? I reckon a lot of the people you spoke to, I reckon that free hit will be used in 32. It's just the way that the fixtures are kind of landing. If you want to load up on certain teams in 29 and keep those teams because they're likely to double like later in the season as well, you have to use that the free hit in 32 is the way to navigate it, because those blanks in 32 should correspond with doubles in future game weeks. So
I see. I love it.
Yeah, I think it's a nice way to manage it, and I reckon probably a lot of the people are saying, hey, they'll use a free hit in a double. I reckon they'll be using it in 32.
I don't doubt it based on how you've explained it at all. I find that really interesting, and I'm sure the viewers do as well, Matt. Look, one final question before we wrap things up. We've gone over sort of 30 minutes already, but for people who still have for people who still have that triple captaincy chip, I mean, a lot of managers have used it already ages ago on Erling Haaland in the main. Is it any game week or set of fixtures that leaps out to you as a candidate for that you'd recommend? I appreciate I'm catching you on the hop a little bit there, as you don't have that chip deployed. But is there anything that you think actually that would make good sense to use that if you still had that chip in at your disposal?
I'd say firstly, it's not answering your question, Tom, but like triple captain, don't worry about it. Right? It's a chip, but you could get a 10-point gain or whatnot. Your good play over the coming weeks like trumps that every time. So don't stress about it too much. I've never had much luck with the triple captain. I think last year I got hardly anything. This year I captained Haaland wrong game week. So it is what it is. You can have great seasons without nailing the triple captain. So don't worry about it too much. Haven't given it too much thought. I mean, it depends when you're landing with your other chips. No one screams out should use it in a double. So no one screams out in kind of like in 29. I think that's better for a bench boost or a free hit, just because of the size of it, just because of the variety of teams. I would use whoever's got the best looking fixtures in 34 or 37, and both of those game weeks are that's when the FA Cup kind of like blanks from 32 should be played. So you could have a Manchester United player kind of like doubling in one of those weeks. Rashford or Fernandes would be great. You could have a Brighton player. You could have someone like McAllister or March, right? Yeah. And like triple captaining a team from a player from a non Big Six team is not a bad, right? Because I think a few people did it with Richarlison last year for a double for Everton, and he smashed it, right? So I'd be picking 34, 37, a nailed on player who's a talisman for a decent team with decent fixtures. So I don't know what those
No, we
but
won't know them yet. I was just
that'd be
intrigued as to whether or not you'd suggest using it in one of the earlier ones. But of course, you've explained your reasons and to target those double game weeks later down the line. So for the viewers if anyone's still got that chip, then I guess that's the advice. Matt, it's been absolutely enlightening and fascinating. I've learnt heaps. I'm going to be a threat next year. I promise. We'll see. Any final thoughts that we didn't get to on the video, Matt? Anything that you wanted to call out for your future plans, or anything else that you wanted to call out to the viewers?
I think we covered the plans kind of really well. I think, hey, if someone's wildcarded like last kind of week, this week, hard luck, right? That's the kind of luck of the draw. Sometimes it was a bit of a freak result. I think you had a lot of logic behind it. If you held on to your Liverpool players and didn't wildcard, fair play to you.
Yeah.
That's a kind of good move. But I don't think you thought that you'd win 7-0. So
No.
like, stay humble with it. Yeah, these kind of things have you got to stay balanced with those kind of like kind of big swings. So some people on the positive, some have been on the negative end of it. So stay balanced on
loads more game weeks to come back. I mean, or lots of opportunities with the doubles as we've talked around. So lots more opportunities. I'm not sure the other elite managers are going to succeed in reeling you in, though. Matt, we'll have to wait and see. And look, hopefully we can get you back on the show before too long, because it's been awesome to get your thoughts. Guys, look, if you've enjoyed the video, do please smash a like on your way out. Do please leave a comment down below for Matt to get back to if you've got any thoughts or questions on his selections. I'm sure he'll be happy to answer them. Do please subscribe to fantasyfootballfix.com and to the fantasyfootballfix.com YouTube channel. I really hope you've enjoyed the video. I do hope you have a great Game Week 26 for the remaining fixture, and very best of luck going into Game Week 27. And I'll speak to you all next week. Bye-bye.